inbounds inside to Stevenson. Up against Kaminsky. Bucket good in the ball.
Santel all the way to the basket. Foul. Lays it in for two.
Good morning, basketball fans. Welcome to another edition of the Upstate Hoops Podcast. I'm Jim Sinacropi here inside the FingerLakes1.com studios on the third floor of the North Park building in Seneca Falls, New York, for our weekly roundup of Wayne Finger Lakes High School basketball on Sunday, January 20th, 2019. And man, it's a lot of snow this morning, but I made it in here, shoveled, got in here, got set. We were hoping to get 4 Gananda Blue Panthers in here: Jaden Castrocini, Andrew Gabbard, Peyton Daffler, and Emma Drake, 2 from the boys and 2 from the girls teams. But obviously not a good idea for them to drive down this morning. We'll do that next Sunday. We'll hopefully have those. And if the weather's better, you never know around here, but quite a storm. I'll give you a look outside our studios right now, a live look. That'd be Cuga Street and our parking lot outside our offices there, and not a lot of activity out there. A ton of snow. Hope wherever you are today you're warm and ready for some high school basketball talk, some Wayne Finger Lakes High School basketball talk. And it was heck of a week, really. And next week's Regents exams, and that means a really light schedule. There's some games 4 games on Thursday and a bunch of games on Friday. So, good week to kind of take inventory of all the leagues. We're going to look at all the sectional stuff, sectional classifications, sectional standings. It's going to be a packed show, so we probably should get right to it. Also, I got a little treat for you, too. A look back, a little history, I guess, a little history lesson. But I'll save that for later. It should remind you that the Upstate Hoops Podcast and all of our coverage of Wayne Finger Lakes High School basketball is brought to you thanks to the support of Generations Bank. The newest way to save money is also the easiest way to save money with the new MyGen Perks mobile app. Get all the details at mygenbank.com. And by Little John Orthodontics. Dr. Rod Littlejohn and Dr. Liz Barbie are proud to support our area high school athletes. Check out Dr. Rod and Dr. Liz online at littlejohnortho.com. And Bill Cram Chevrolet. All roads lead to Bill Cram Chevrolet on 5 and 20 between Seneca Falls and Waterloo. Browse their full inventory of new and used vehicles at billcramchevrolet.com. And I'm happy to announce this morning that we secured a new sponsor for our postseason coverage. Marquee Exhibits and Joe Helgado are going to be the official sponsors of postseason basketball on FL1 Sports and FingerLakes1.com. We'll fill you in on more details there going forward, and certainly you'll hear a lot about them once the postseason starts and we commence our postseason coverage of all the local teams here as they make their way towards a sectional title and hopefully beyond. I think we will have a few go beyond this year. So I hope you're all plowed out and comfortable inside your home for the rest of the day. We're going to talk basketball. Then you can watch some conference championship football later. It should be a great day. Who cares about the weather, right? So let's start things off here with the Finger Lakes East. Geneva entered the week with the best chance to steal the league from Wayne, but then on Tuesday night lost to Newark in their own gym, 49-46. I think Coach Miller tried to take Vandemortel and Peters out of the game, but it was Kyle Martinez and Devin Augusto coming through with 11 points each. Liam Ryan and Reed Patchett finished with 10 points each. And then also on Tuesday, Waterloo beat Mid-Lakes 73-58, and Wayne hosted Minders and won easily 78-53. Waterloo picked up a second win over Palmac, and then on Friday night, Geneva bounced back with a 62-29 win at home over Mid-Lakes. Double-double for Reed Patchett with 11 points and 11 rebounds. And talking to Coach Miller, he's really happy that his team is really taking to the identity of them being a defensive team. That's not always the most glamorous way to go if you're a kid, but you know what? If you can get your squad to buy into that and they can deliver on what you're preaching them, it's out. In today's game, that's out of the norm, I think. And so these kids work hard, very coachable. It was a disappointing loss to Tuesday. Good to see them bounce back. And I think Coach Miller challenged them, on the defensive end. And they held Mid Lakes to 29 points. And there's been games where Matt Mattoon has scored more than 29 points himself. And so Mid Lakes had been playing better. And I think that was kind of a statement game for Geneva after losing to Newark. And let's face it, there's a bunch of teams in the Finger Lakes East. Newark, Wayne. Well, Wayne's clearly the best team in the East, but Geneva, Newark, Waterloo. I mean, those guys could all play each other 10 times each, and they might split, 50% in each of those matchups. So, it was an interesting game on Tuesday night to see how Geneva and Newark would fare. It was a big win for Newark, as I said, and a really disappointing loss for Geneva, but I don't think that game's going to define either one of their seasons going forward. And, honestly, step ahead to Friday night of this week, Wayne won by 17 at Penn Yan, and I mentioned that Geneva game over Mid Lakes, but FingerLakes1.com was in Newark for Minders versus Newark, and Newark had beaten Minders by 21 on December 7th. Fresh off their big win over Geneva on Tuesday night. Geneva was 3 and Newark was 4 in last week's power rankings, so Geneva looked like they were poised to move up in the power rankings. And Minders was 5-7. It's been a tough year for Minders. Young team, great senior leader in Darren Miller, one of the best players in the Finger Lakes East. Tremendous athlete and unstoppable, I think, when he wants to be. And the rest of the team is young. I mean, freshmen, sophomores getting the bulk of the playing time. Griffin Heron in his junior year, first year on varsity, starting to get up to speed, as is everybody. So with a team like that, you really don't know what to expect going into the season, and I think it's gone not as well as Coach Korzeniewski has hoped, but as we'll talk about later, with Minders being in Class B2, there's still an opportunity to improve and get better. But on Friday night, turning point game for Minders with a 50-43 win at Newark. They came out in man-to-man defense, and the defense was stifling. 4 first-quarter points is all that Newark could score against this Minders defense, this man-to-man defense by undersized, younger Blue Devil players against a senior-laden Newark team. I remember when I watched them play in Seneca Falls while they were warming up. I'm like, this isn't going to be good. Newark, it looks like men versus boys out there on the court. Newark more mature physically, a lot more varsity experience, and it was kind of shocking to see these kids from Minders play that type of defense, and they hadn't been a primarily man-to-man defense. In fact, I talked to Coach Korzeniewski about the Wayne game that they lost, and he said towards the second half they were getting a little frustrated, and he's like, what the heck? He and Coach Prain said, let's go man-to-man, let's just go man-to-man. So they went man-to-man for a while, and Wayne built the lead to 28, and so that didn't give Coach K much confidence in the man-to-man defense, although I don't think anybody's going to be able to man up Wayne and have much success. But that was even more surprising to see them come out and play man-to-man exclusively in that game against Newark, and it's like bizarro world because Newark's in his own. But the youngsters showed a lot of toughness, and experience is one thing that's been lacking for Minders. Outside shooting has been abysmal for Minders. And then toughness, I think, has been lacking across the board. A lot of individual players have shown toughness at times out there, but consistent toughness from everybody on the court And as I mentioned, as a young team, that's one of those things that comes with time, I think. But you wondered if it ever would, show up for the Blue Devils. So they showed a toughness that's been lacking for a lot of the season, and they made enough of their shots. They didn't shoot 50% from three. They didn't even shoot 40% from three. I don't know the number. I would guess it was probably somewhere around 25% from three, but they had been shooting like 10%. So they made just enough shots. And Griffin Herron stepped up late, making Minders had a 9-0 lead going into the fourth quarter, and they led most of the game. And I remember talking to Tony Robinson, who I was calling the game with during the commercial break, and I said, I think Minders is going to lose this game. I think they're going to fall apart when it comes right down to it. I think here in the fourth quarter, Newark's going to come back to reality, start scoring, and Minders is going to have trouble scoring. And that's what happened right off the bat in the fourth. It was a 9-0 run to start the fourth for Newark, tied the game, and then someone stepped up for Minders. Griffin Herron. He drove to the foul line on one possession and made a little foul line runner to give Minders the lead back after Newark had tied it. And then the following possession, he knocked down a three-pointer. And I don't know, Coach Korzeniski's wanting Griffin Herron to shoot the ball more. I don't know if he loved that shot, but once it went in, he did. And great to see a kid have success after struggling for a lot of the season. Then in the biggest game to date for Minders on the road against a rival, a place that they usually don't win, Griffin Herron steps up and delivers 5 key points to give Minders the lead back, which they would never relinquish. So that's a feel-good story, I think. It wasn't just Griffin Herron alone that secured the win, though. Darren Miller battled triple teams all night, finished with a game-high 20. Youngsters made some late mistakes, but also knocked down shots, a three-pointer from Nick Jones, a three-pointer from Cabot. Jared King knocked down a three. So as I mentioned, it wasn't a great night shooting by any means, but they made enough, just enough. And Jared King, really impressive in that fourth quarter, went to the free throw line 3 times and made 5 of 6 free throws to keep Minders that game over 2 possessions. And Darren Miller had an amazing block, too, at one point on Jaden Peters when Newark was coming back. Jaden got the ball in the paint and spun to shoot, and from where I was sitting, it looked like it was going to be a routine layup, and then out of nowhere, Darren Miller came, swatted it away, and then Mike Bogart corralled it. Bogart and Cabot are both freshmen, and for Minders, I think to have success in the postseason, they're going to have to continue to develop. I think in an ideal world, both those kids are on JVs this year. But the way it stands, they're getting a lot of minutes and are key components of this Minders team. So you hope at the end of their first year of varsity basketball, they are not freshmen anymore. You hear that a lot in the NCAA tournament games when the announcers say, he's just a freshman, but not a freshman anymore because by that time you really have a season under your belt. So, Jake Smith was guarding Mason Vandemortel man-to-man, giving up 6 inches in 2 years of experience. And I know that I think King was on him for a while too, but they did a great job on Vandemortel. He ended up with 17. Some of them late in the game. But just like Geneva, I think Minders wanted to control what Mason Vandemortel and Jaden Peters did. And Peters finished with 11, Vandemortel with 17. And Minders with a turning point game. So we'll see how they go from here. Newark will look to regroup. They'll get ready for a stretch run in the regular season and then the postseason. And let's take a look at the Finger Lakes standings after this week. See here. Yeah, there they are. Of course, Wayne is your leader now. 2 games clear in the loss column. I can't call it yet because Wayne has to play Geneva. A game you'll see on Finger Lakes 1. Newark again, and that was a good game in Ontario. Now Wayne has to come to Newark and Waterloo, so can't crown them the Finger Lakes East champs yet, but odds-on favorites at this point, heavy. So then it gets interesting what's happening now with Waterloo beat Newark, Newark beat Geneva, Geneva beat Waterloo, and there they all stand in second, third, and fourth, and we'll see how it pans out. They don't give any medals for second place, but certainly since those are three Class B1 teams, I think that it's going to be give one of those teams, the team that finishes the regular season at the top of that heap of three there, is going to have a lot of confidence going forward into the postseason. So the week ahead, Geneva's off. They don't play a game. Coach Miller has to attend an NCAA convention in Orlando as part of his interim athletic director job at Hobart. So he told me that he was really happy that the folks over at Pelmac were willing to move their game up. I know he appreciated the favor and was grateful for that. But Geneva off this week. Their next game not till January 29th. So a 9-day layoff. Actually, that would be an 11-day layoff. They're hosting Wayne in the Panther Den, and that game you'll be able to see live on fingerlakes1.com. So that'll be one to look forward to. And then other games in the week ahead in the Finger Lakes East, Newark's at Batavia on Monday, then Friday night, Waterloo at Wayne, Newark at Mid-Lakes, and Penn Yan at Minders. Moving ahead to the Finger Lakes West, Red Jacket got a couple wins, 62-56 at HAC and 63-29 over Romulus. And this Red Jacket team is a little underrated, a little overlooked. They're second in C2 standings right now, and no one's more to blame, I guess, than I have. We haven't talked a ton about the Red Jacket boys this year, but I think it's time to take a look at them. Second place in C2 standings. Of course, first place in C2 standings is Lions, and do I think that Red Jacket could beat Lions? Maybe once out of 20 times, but sometimes that 1 out of 20 happens, and they may meet down the road in the postseason. Naples continues to win. It hasn't been easy, though. Tuesday, they defeated Honeoye 55-51, despite 21 points from Tyler Rudolph and 16 from Dom Trippi. They needed overtime at Dundee to win 64-61. Cole Rathman had 25 versus Honeoye and 24 versus Dundee, including 11 of 13 from the free throw line. And Naples is still within a half game of Whitman, and Marcus Whitman still has to go to Naples. Now, Marcus Whitman crushed Naples in Rushville earlier this year in a game that you saw in Finger Lakes 1. But as Minders just showed, here's the thing. It's crazy. Minders lost to Newark at home by 21. Then Geneva beats Newark in Geneva. And prior to that, Geneva beat Minders at home by 30. So how could a team like that, if you just look at those facts, how could that Minders team win at Newark? Well, maybe Coach Liebentritt and the Big Green in Naples are thinking the same thing. So certainly right there in the league standings. Prior to losing in overtime to Naples, Dundee had lost 63-29 at Romulus. So that doesn't make sense because, as I mentioned, Red Jacket beat Romulus by 32 points, and Romulus beat Dundee and 63-29, the same score that Red Jacket beat Romulus. So anyways, 13.7 rebounds, 5 blocks from Max Mattstone for Joe Peisnack's Romulus Warriors. And the story of West remains the Marcus Whitman Wildcats for sure. And looking at the standings, 9-0. And again, Naples just that half game back, but 10 straight wins for the Wildcats. They rolled past Bloomfield 71-37 thanks to 19 points from John Donovan. And Coach O'Connor credits Aiden Royston's defense. He held Tanner Kimball to just 7, which nobody's doing that. Kimball's had huge games this year. Aiden Royston basically face guarding him all over the court And a few weeks ago, he did the same thing to Cole Rathman, who held him to just 12, which has to be a season low. And I know they're looking ahead to sectionals. I actually saw sophomore guard Jordan Lehue with his dad, athletic director Paul Lehue, at the Lions-Gananda game, scouting out Gananda. And I would love to see Whitman-Gananda. That would be something for sure. And I was actually at Marcus Whitman for an indoor soccer tournament that they had there that my daughter was playing in. And I saw Coach O'Connor there. He was coaching a girls' soccer team from Whitman, also coaches lacrosse. So just really huge part of the athletic program there. And you know what? I don't know if Coach O'Connor could have accomplished anything on the basketball court if it wasn't for his dad, Jerry O'Connor, sitting on the bench. And Coach Greg's dad, Jerry, actually told me to say that, so... No, but that's great that you got the dad, father-son combo working, and it just every time I go to Marcus Whitman, I just get a good feeling. I think everything they do over there is positive, and I'm really hoping that they see some success in the postseason here. They've come close to getting to that Blue Cross Arena a couple times and had some bad luck with matchups, so let's hope that this year maybe it all comes together. And looking ahead this week, on Thursday night in the Finger Lakes West, Bloomfield's at Honeoye, HAC's at Naples, Dundee's at Whitman, and South Seneca's at Red Jacket. So, again, quiet week ahead. Wayne County boys, all eyes were on Lions on Tuesday night. Ganonda's just one game back of Lions heading into the game on Tuesday, and Ganonda jumped out to a 9-2 lead and made a run at the end of the half. It was a game of runs, and when Lions goes on a run, it's a bigger run than anybody else in the Wayne Finger Lakes can put together. They eventually win 94-75, so I was impressed with Lions, again, as I usually am when watching them, but also impressed with Ganonda. They were really undersized, playing in that small court at the Atwood, and I don't want to say it's a good loss when you had a chance to take a share of the lead in the Wayne County standings, but I was impressed with Ganonda despite the deficit, and really impressed with Jaden Castrocini, finished with 31 points. Jerry Brongo, there's a name. He's just a sophomore, but you're going to be hearing a lot about Jerry Brongo. Really fun player to watch, plays really hard, and now that I've seen him in person, seen Ganonda and seen Brongo, he's a key cog. I like this Ganonda team a lot. And I mentioned wanted to see Whitman do well. Also would love to see Ganonda do well. Ideally, Ganonda Whitman in the Blue Cross, yeah. Ideally, that would be great. That would be such a fun game. Both these teams are really unselfish and great passing teams, and a lot of interesting personalities on each side. I would love to see that. Andrew Gabbard, 13 points in that game, and Tim McClare, the big man inside, with 10 points. And for Lions, Justice Smith, 33. David Weaver, 18 points, all on threes, 6 of them. Benji Kemp, 13. Tweaked his ankle, the same ankle that made him miss the first 4 games of the year. A little scary moment. He's going to miss a few games, hopefully not more than that. But, man, there's only so many games in your high school career, and I feel bad for Benji Kemp for sure. Having to miss a couple more. Hopefully not. Like I said, it's a light week this week, so hopefully he heals up quick. They need him. They need him for the postseason, especially with their aspirations to go beyond the sectionals this year. Aaron Romero, 13 points. Aaron Romero is the second best rebounder on this team, and if you lined him up along the baseline before the game and say pick out your top 5 rebounders, Aaron Romero wouldn't be one of them. So it shows a lot about his instincts and a lot about his desire to go get it. Justin Smith, 11 points in that one, and everything is copacetic for the most part in Lions right now. Also in Wayne County, Clyde Savannah lost to Ganonda, so Ganonda bounced back from that Lions game with an 85-58 win. Lions goes to Red Creek, wins 90-52, 20 from Justice, 20 from Weaver, 17 from Tootie Smith, Hunter Bastian with 12, Horace Betts with 12, and then for Red Creek, Dan Smith had 13, Damon Jones had 12, and Cyrus Lurch had 10. And this Red Creek team is better than maybe we give them credit for off the top of the season. So we'll keep an eye on them in postseasons too. I know they had an injury at one point that hurt them. One game for East Rochester, who is kind of getting lost in the shuffle. They beat Sodus in their own gym 58-47. And if we go ahead now and take a look at the Wayne County standings, Lions, of course, 2 games clear. Look, it's over, folks. Gonada needed to pull an upset for anybody to have a chance. Lions are going to win the Wayne County League. No surprise there. Only loss of the season, North Star Christian in Geneva in a great game. Gonada 12-2 with both their losses to Lions. So if Lions was to say in the Finger Lakes East, Gonada would be dominating Wayne County the same way Whitman is dominating the Finger Lakes West. And then, like I said, East Rochester, I may be sleeping on them a little bit because Gonada beat them by 30 points a couple weeks ago. But 9-5, 8-2, and Lions has to go to East Rochester still, which is a potential trip-up game. I think they lost last year to East Rochester. They lose in East Rochester quite a bit, actually. So we'll see what happens there. Coming up this week, Monday, Victor at East Rochester. That's a different one. Victor's been playing better as of late, AA team against this Class C East Rochester team. Then Friday night, Gonada at Marion, East Rochester at North Rose Wolcott, Red Creek at Clyde Savannah, and Sodus at Lions. And then Saturday night, it's going to be the Newark Reds at the Lions at the Community Center, the game of the year, without a doubt. But that's actually not happening. I'd love to see that happen. Everybody I talk to would love to see that happen. But if people focusing on sectional points, maybe sectional standings, and I get it. Yeah, maybe that's the difference between a home sectional game in the first or second round and an away game. I doubt it. I think if you're good enough to win your classification, you're going to end up with a home game anyway. So I don't really buy into that agreement. As I just mentioned, Victor's going to East Rochester, a AA team willing to go on the road to face a C team. So I just would love to see it happen for sure. And you know what? Before we switch it over to the girls, I want to play for you the introduction that we ran in 2013, the only time in the past 50 years that Newark and Lions met. And as part of that intro to our broadcast, I talked to Don Oakleaf. He was the starting center for the Lions from 1960 to 1962. And I came across this, and I think you're going to enjoy it. I want to pass it along. I just want you to get a little bit of the history and understand why for the past couple weeks I've been really pushing for Lions in Newark to play. So check this out.
Brought up the concept of rivalry. I was sort of over-focused on some of the negative aspects that you read about with rivalries these days. And as I look back and I talked to a couple of my teammates, there really was no negative aspect to the rivalry with Newark. We started out with a focus on developing our team, and our team worked together well. We enjoyed playing basketball. And so all the focus from our perspective and also from Newark's perspective was on, what happened on the court. It was just I'd say, almost a professional atmosphere. We were there to play basketball and have a good, clean game of basketball, and that was it. And I think in terms of the crowds, we filled high school gymnasiums, all throughout the Wayne Finger Lakes. And part of that was that back in that era, there were actually, we call them cheer clubs, but booster clubs, where the school actually, sent 2 or 3 buses of students to each game. In addition to which, you had, the parents of the players and quite a large contingent of just outside community members who, enjoyed basketball. So there was always a very positive, electric environment for each one of our games.
So then it went right into the game. So if you're looking for something to do today before the football games start and after this podcast ends, go to YouTube, search for Lions at Newark, and it'll come up. It's the only game you'll find on there that has Lions playing Newark, because it's the only one that's ever happened since YouTube was invented. So yeah, I would urge you to check that game out. It was before we were doing games in high definition, so it might be a little bit hard to watch, but it was a great game and a huge crowd. And there was a halftime interview that Brendan Harrington, who called the game for us, did with Jim Blandino, where he talked a lot about the history of the rivalry, and it was a really enjoyable night. So we'd like to see it again. I would love to see that every year. For sure. But maybe next year, right? Maybe next year. So anyways, let's kick things over to the girls. And it was a week of milestones, a week of big individual performances, and also a wild week at the top of the Wayne County girls standings. Let's start with the Finger Lakes East, where the Mid-Lakes girls look unbeatable, but Pelmax still just one game back in the standings. But Mid-Lakes hosted Waterloo, and that was a game that I really think the Waterloo girls are on the upswing here. But Mid-Lakes comes out with a 67-42 win. In the game, Elena Forbes, 41 points, ties the school record, 8 steals to go along with that. Kara Walker, 12.6 assists. Macy Kisner, 13 points and 8 rebounds. And then Mid-Lakes is playing this weekend at Our Lady of Mercy and don't have a result of the game they played yesterday. Not sure the status of the games either with the weather, but that's a real legitimate opportunity for Mid-Lakes to pick up their first loss of the season. But if they do win it, boy, man, I would be super impressed. A AA Mercy team that's very, very good. That 41 points for Elena Forbes, though, maybe you saw it on social media, but she should have had 43. She had a shot go up well before the end of the quarter buzzer, and it was quite an amazing little circus shot that she kind of tossed up as she was falling forward into the paint to beat the buzzer. And as I said, it wasn't even close. You can hear the buzzer go off, and the shot is well on its way. Matter of fact, it even goes through the basket before the horn goes off. But the referees waved it off. Elena Forbes finishes with 41. Tying the school record instead of the 43 that she deserved that would have broke the school record. Also in the East, Geneva girls play a tough schedule. East High, coached by Tim Jackson, came to town. Geneva beat them by 10, 56-46. Lauren Devaney, 32 points and 16 rebounds. The Minders girls hosted Romulus, which is a unique Seneca County matchup. They actually did a home-and-home this year. Minders won them both. This week they won 47-33. Maddie Barnett with 15, Mackenzie Higbee with 11 and 6, Sarah Kohlberger with 11 rebounds. For Romulus, it was Hannah Mingus with 9, and Lydia Sales with 7. And Coach Damon Nicholson wasn't on the bench. 25 years as head coach of Romulus, not on the bench. I'll talk about that a little bit further when we get to the West. Then Minders hosts Wayne, loses a tough one, 43-38. Marcus Whitman girls went to Penn Yan, another East-West crossover game this week. And Penn Yan won that one 41-26, 10 points and 10 rebounds from Ashley Sisson and Jamie Decker with 8.6 rebounds. So Finger Lakes East girls standings look like this. It is Mid Lakes, of course, at the top. Pelmac play them one more time. The only team with a chance to catch them. Even if they beat them, Mid Lakes could still win the league. But Mid Lakes rolling on, 12-0. The only undefeated in all the Wayne Finger Lakes leagues, boys or girls. And week ahead for Wayne County, for the Finger Lakes East, has Pelmac at Geneva. Tough game for Pelmac there. Mid Lakes at Newark. Newark's been playing better. Minders at Penn Yan and Wayne at Waterloo. And speaking of Newark playing better, they had Minders against the ropes in Seneca Falls. Three-pointer at the end of regulation to send it to overtime. And then nobody scored in the first overtime. And then the second overtime, Maddie Barnett hits a three-pointer coming off screen with 3.4 seconds left, down one, to give the Minders girls a really much needed win. That would have been a tough one, losing to last place Newark in Seneca Falls. So that was Friday night. That game was going on concurrently with the boys' game, and which is too bad because I think most Minders fans and parents would love to have watched both of those games, but you had to choose. You're going to go to Newark and watch the boys. You're going to go to Seneca Falls and watch the girls. You're going to stay home and watch the boys on Finger Lakes 1. You're going to watch the girls and go home and watch the boys on Finger Lakes 1. But I love those varsity boys and girls doubleheaders because it really gives the proper respect to both the boys and the girls side, putting them in the same gym in one place so everybody can fill that gym and watch both of those varsity games. So Finger Lakes West. I mentioned Damon Nicholson. He resigned as head coach of Romulus after 25 years. The 2014 New York State Championship, and really one of the legendary coaches in the Wayne Finger Lakes and in South Seneca County. And not sure why. I know that we reported it first and caught a little flack, actually. Some people weren't happy that we reported that, but guess what? Romulus came to Minders the game after he resigned, and athletic director Mike Payne was on the bench, and everybody within the circle of basketball coaches and administrators and school officials knew that what happened. So we confirmed it through various sources and reported it, and some people weren't happy. Then I opened up the Finger Lakes Times like a couple days later, and they have an article about it with quotes from the individual who was unhappy that we reported that. So I don't know. We're just trying to cover the Wayne Finger Lakes. Damon Nicholson, state champion coach, a longtime coach of a historic program, and he wasn't on the bench, and we asked around why. And so back to basketball, though. Red Jacket remains one game back, and they play South Seneca on Thursday night. And we're going to be there for that one at the Jack Guinan, and that's a rematch of last year's sectional title game. And the first place in the Wayne or in the Finger Lakes West leagues is on the line, as you can see there in the standings. South Seneca at 10-0 and Red Jacket at 9-1. South Seneca 13-1, won 12 straight since their opening loss to Weedsport, and man, everything's clicking on all cylinders for Coach Mott and the Falcons. But huge game in the West on Thursday night. Can't wait to bring you that one live on FingerLakes1.com. And then the Marcus Whitman girls playing great in league. And Romulus had been improving. Dundee girls improving. It's South Seneca Red Jacket, though, coming up on Thursday night. Going to be a great game. And one of the reasons why is Sarah Van Aken is just been exploding lately for Red Jacket. They beat HAC 60-38. She had 30 points and 8 rebounds that night, including her 1,000th point. So congratulations, Sarah, 1,000 points. Always a great accomplishment for any high school basketball player. Red Jacket went to Romulus as well last week. Van Aken had 17 points, 11 rebounds. Sydney Close had 17. One of the better shooters in all of girls basketball in Section 5. Deadly from beyond the arc. Lillian Pinard with 5.6 rebounds in that one. And Sarah wasn't the only 1,000-point scorer from the Finger Lakes West this week. Autumn Coons continues to light the scoreboard, and she recorded her 1,000th point against, was it Dundee or Naples? Well, it was one of those two games this week. Naples beat Honeyway 52-50. Coons had 36 in that one. I think it was the Dundee game that she did it. And Dundee won big there, 68-37 at Naples. But again, Autumn Coons with 28 points, and including her 1,000th point. So congratulations, Autumn Coons. And Dundee, like I said, the girls playing better. Listen to these stat lines from that win at Naples. Mackenzie Straight had 17 points and 9 assists. Mackenzie Kratzley had 15.7 assists and 20 rebounds. So Dundee playing better. And as I mentioned, South Seneca keeps rolling on. Hosted Bloomfield, 75-45 win. Jenna McDonald, 20.6 rebounds, 6 steals. Jade Parsons, 15 points, 15 rebounds. Logan Shawless, huge stat week for her across all categories. 9 points, 10 rebounds, 8 steals. Then South Seneca at HAC, Lady Falcons, 67. The Wolves, 33. Jade Parsons with 12 points, 13 rebounds. Emma Fletcher with 12. And Logan Shawless, 11 points, 6 assists, 13 rebounds. She's really emerging as one of the most exciting girls to watch in the Finger Lakes West and all the Wayne Finger Lakes. And we're going to see her live on Thursday, squaring up against Sarah Van Aken. So coming up this week in the West girls, Dundee's at Marcus Whitman, Naples at HAC, and of course Red Jacket at South Seneca Thursday night live on Finger Lakes 1. Wayne County girls, crazy week at the top of the standings. First thing you do is you get Gananda beating Marion 42-27, and Marion had beaten Gananda earlier in the year. Gananda playing really good basketball now in the Wayne County League. Lions has been entertaining thoughts of league title this year, but they had a tough loss at East Rochester this week, losing 67-50, despite 13 from Allison Cook and 11 points, 4 assists, and 6 steals from Caden Crago. For ER, Sam Lewis, 23.6 rebounds. Zoe Zoots, 16 points, 15 rebounds. And Samantha Freeberg, 9 points, 13 rebounds. And then you got to talk, when you're talking Wayne County girls basketball right now, we got to talk about Izzy Wilbur, who has been lighting it up for the Red Creek Lady Lambs. She got off to a slow start. I'm not sure why, but the past 3-4 weeks, man, she's scoring more than that. Is Autumn Coons, what she's doing in Naples, she's getting matched by Izzy Wilbur up at Red Creek. So Clyde Savannah did beat Red Creek. The team hasn't been winning a lot of games. Clyde with a big win for the program there, though, 51-48 on the road. Caitlin Bloomer, 22 points. Taylor Sharp, 16 points. Kelsey DeSanto, 6. Red Creek, Izzy Wilbur, 31 points. And then they hosted Rochester Prep, and the Lady Rams won 71-41. Izzy Wilbur, 47 points, 4 assists, and 8 rebounds. Wow, 47. Last year, Pat Geithner scored 50 for the Bloomfield Bombers. Izzy Wilbur's 47, the highest single-game output by a Wayne Finger Lakes boys or girls player this year so far. So great to see her having things on track. And she's a sophomore, too. She's not a senior doing this. She's a sophomore. So who can only imagine how many points she's going to end up with if she keeps scoring like this by the time her career is over. And so Wayne County girls standings. Let's see them. There they are. Gananda back on top. It looked like it might be in Lions and Marion for a while. Then it looked like just Marion, and now it looks like Gananda. I have a feeling that's about where it's going to stay. Gananda, probably the best team in Wayne County. 10-1, 11-3 overall. The Marion Lions and Red Creek with a nice winning record in their league at 7-5, and also with that win over Rochester Prep, 7-6 overall. And the ER Bombers always strong. having a nice season as well, 6-4, 9-4, and they might be the team we're overlooking a little bit on the girls' side of things. So that's a rundown of all the standings here. And as usual, we might go a little late today. A winter storm throughout the Finger Lakes. You think that's going to stop the Upstate Hoops Podcast? I also got to tell you, I don't know if you guys got your Sunday paper this morning, wherever you're tuning in from, but most people haven't. So if you need some news, go to Finger Lakes 1, because I tell you what, right now we've got full coverage of all the news today. We've got full coverage of this storm. We've got coverage of yesterday's Women's March in Seneca Falls. We've got a coverage of Syracuse's win over Pittsburgh yesterday. We've got coverage of high school basketball. We've got a podcast, including our Sunday conversation regarding the Solar Village in Geneva. There's a debrief podcast with Ted Baker and Josh Durso talking about the week in local politics and news. And so there's tons of new content there for you on Finger Lakes 1 on your phone, your tablet, or your desktop to enjoy here on a snowy Sunday morning, just in case you're disappointed that your newspaper didn't show up. Okay, we're going to do power rankings, then we're going to run through all the sectional standings. So we might go over an hour here, but we've been doing that a lot this year. And, really one reason we were trying to cap it at exactly an hour is because this show airs on Time Warner TV channel 1304. It used to be channel 12. Let me tell you something. We had a lot of people come across it when we were on channel 12. Since we're on 1304, not so much. So we'll continue to post our shows on Finger Lakes Television, channel 1304, but I'm not going to have it dictate how we present our content. And there's a lot to get to today. So, okay, let's move forward. Let's go power rankings before we do anything else. And boys, Wayne, number 1, Lions, number 2. Coach Zach Young, former Lions coach, told me that he has Lions 1 on his ballot and Wayne 2. He says that, how did he put it? Lions almost beat North Star, one of the best teams. Wayne in A2, and Wayne lost to leadership in their second game of the year, I think it was. So therefore, Lions greater than Wayne. So I don't know. I wish they played. I'm not going to raise a stink about it like I have with Newark and Lions, because they're not exactly neighboring townships that should play every year, just because you could essentially walk to the game or ride a bike. But Wayne and Lions this year would have been an amazing game to see. And I think that they may have tried to line it up, but for a lot of reasons. I don't think Wayne wants to play because they would have to play down 2 classifications in C. I think we need to change the way sectional points are tabulated anyways, because there should be no reason to deny the players and the fans an incredible game that would be Wayne versus Lions. I think for the one we got Gananda kids next week coming in the podcast. What I'm going to try to line up is I want one episode where we got 2 or 3 girls from South Seneca and 2 and 3 girls from Mid Lakes in here at the same time, and then I want 2 or 3 kids from Wayne and 2 or 3 kids from Lions in here at the same time, because those are the 4 teams that right now look to be primed to make out exceptional runs in the postseason. And so I'd like to get them all together here for a couple of our last shows before we actually kick off the postseason, which regular season ends on Valentine's Day, folks. So it's not too far away. It's the 20th now. So what? That's 1, 2, 3.5, 4 weeks left in the regular season, which means spring's coming. You wouldn't know it, though, right? You wouldn't know it by looking out your window. So anyways, yeah, Wayne 1, Lions 2, Marcus Whitman 3. The question is, how good is Marcus Whitman? Coming up shortly on a Monday night, we've got Marcus Whitman at Minders. That'll be interesting to see how they fare in that crossover against a middle team in the Finger Lakes East standings. If Minders wins that game, then these power rankings are all wrong. If Marcus Whitman wins it, then yeah, they might be the 3rd best team in all the Wayne Finger Lakes boys leagues right now. Geneva, despite the loss in Newark at home, Came back strong against Mid-Lakes, and they remain at 4. Waterloo up to 5. Remember, Waterloo beat Newark. Newark will go back to Waterloo. You'll see that game on Finger Lakes 1. But Newark, with that loss to Minders, drops from 4 to 6. And that's got to be disappointing for him after having that big win against Minders or against Geneva at Geneva on Tuesday night. Gananda down to 7. They lost to Lions. That wasn't a surprise. Maybe they shouldn't get punished too badly for that one, because I actually thought they looked good and played really tough, really hard. Naples with a couple of wins at 8. Minders with that big road win now back inside the top 10 at 9, and then the Red Jacket boys at 10. So love the crossover games because it helps us figure out these power rankings a little bit more. And yes, if you're a Finger Lakes East team with a near 500 or below 500 record, you might argue, you know what, we'll play Naples and we'll beat Naples. But you know what, if you don't have a winning record, you don't belong in the power rankings. That's very rare to see that happen. So let's look at the girls. Let's look at the girls' power rankings. Oh, big surprise. Mid-Lakes 1, South Seneca 2. Boy, I wish those two teams played. Pelmac at 3, Red Jacket all the way up to 4. I don't know what's gotten into Sarah Van Aken, but lately she's been playing great. I can't wait to see if she can put up those numbers against South Seneca. And I think Sydney Close needs to provide more scoring. She's had some big games, but she's also had some quiet games. Maybe they're paying too much attention to her because nobody can knock them down like Sydney Close from beyond the arc. The Gananda Blue Panthers and Peyton Daffler up to 5. The Waterloo Indians, Lady Indians at 6. Wayne at 7. Geneva at 8. They're right about 500 now. I can't remember what their record is. Did I even show the Finger Lakes East girls standings? I did. I think they're maybe Geneva's one game above 500 now. The Minders girls at 9, and Marion, after a strong start, they had them inside the top 10, or top 5, now down to 10. So there are your girls' standings in our power rankings. So let's run through all the sectional brackets. Start with the boys. East High 1. This is A2. We're not doing AA, or we're not doing any teams that don't involve, or classifications that don't involve Wayne Finger Lakes teams. East High, North Star Christian 2, Wayne 3. Will we see that matchup? Maybe. If it ended this way, they'd be on the same side of the bracket. But yeah, I think Wayne, if they want to win their third straight A2 title, it's going to be tougher this year than it was to win their first or second, if that's hard enough to believe. And I think a lot of times, thinking about this Wayne team, since they had so much coming back, we kind of brush off Braden Zanelovic's departure, especially since he was hurt for a lot of last year, missed a lot of games. But come sectional time, that's the type of kid that they're going to miss. He was tough, a real leader for that team. And you like to think everybody got a little better and a little more experienced and prepared for their senior year so that would overcome a loss like that. And I think they essentially have. But back in my mind, I'm just thinking, man, the Fresh Prince sure was a staple of that program for those 2 sectional titles. We'll see if they can do it without him against a tougher A2 classification that has North Star Christian in the mix. B1, this is one that always gets us excited. Of course, last year it was just one big B classification. Now it's B1 and B2. Greece Odyssey, the team to beat in B1, I think everybody's kind of established that. But after them, it's wide open, and that includes Waterloo, Newark, Geneva, and Hornell. Now, Newark's going to Batavia on Monday. That'll be an interesting test. If they win that game easily, it'll make me feel a lot better about those 3 Wayne Finger Lakes teams at the top, get into advance into the semis, and eventually seeing at least one of them, maybe 2 of them, in the Blue Cross Arena. 2 of the last 3 years, we've had all Wayne Finger Lakes title games in the Blue Cross, all Finger Lakes East title games in the Blue Cross, and that could happen again this year. And I don't want to count Mid-Lakes out either, way down there at 9, but unfortunately, Geneva really held them to under 30 points and beat them pretty badly this week. So B2 standings. I think Wellsville's a class. Obviously, they're first, but haven't watched them play last year in the postseason. They lost to Minders in Seneca Falls, but a really talented young team that returned everybody and a really strong program that you see all the time, in semifinals and finals. And right now, they're the team to beat, and I don't think Penn Yan or Minders are that close yet to where they need to beat Wellsville. Leroy, Attica, Bath, Wayland, Cohocton, World of Inquiry, sure. Yeah, Minders and Penn Yan, I like their chances against those teams. So, be interesting to see, what those matchups look like in the semifinals, and if Wayne Finger Lakes team among these two Finger Lakes East teams can actually capture this sectional title in B2. Getting down to the C classifications, there Marcus Whitman is at 1, but C.G. Finney at 2 has an 8th grader who I've heard people talking about NBA. I've heard people talk about this 8th grader is going to play 2 years at C.G. Finney, then he's going to go to a prep school, then he's going to play college basketball somewhere for 1 year, and then he's going to be in the NBA draft. That's what people are saying about this kid from C.G. Finney, this 8th grader. Too early to tell if you ask me, but I guess that's how the track you get him on nowadays. Got to start early. But C.G. Finney is going to be a tough out for any of team in C1. Avon's very good this year. Addison's strong. But Whitman, Gananda, East Rochester, and Sodus as well. And Red Creek or Williamson with a shot to pull an upset maybe and sneak into a semifinal. But I'm hoping to see Marcus Whitman, Gananda at some point in the postseason. Ideally, it would be in the Blue Cross Arena. But one of those two teams is probably going to be paired up on the same side of the bracket with Finney, and so that would be a tough semifinal game for sure. But if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And I don't think C.G. Finney as a whole, despite the legend of this 8th grade player from C.G. Finney, is unbeatable or as strong of a team as, say, North Star Christian was when they beat Whitman last year in Bloomfield. So, love the C1 classification, and Gananda's been a staple in the sectional finals in recent history, having Enrique Mousman had him in the sectional final game they lost, and the girls' side, too, has been the sectional title 2 years ago for the girls. So, in C2, okay, I'll put my money on Lions. How's that? Lions, heavy favorites throughout here. They beat Perry last year in the sectional final. Perry lost a lot. Lions didn't lose as much. And, of course, they didn't lose Justice Smith. The Bloomfield boys, I watched them playing against South Seneca, and they look great. They got really good ball movement, really good shooters. Tanner Kimball, great leader, a guy who can provide a lot of points, but there's some of the games on their schedule, I just scratch my head. Can't believe it. So do I think that Bloomfield and Red Jacket in a semifinal game would be a good game? Sure. Do I think that Red Jacket or Lions could come close to beating, or Red Jacket or Bloomfield could come close to competing with Lions? No, I don't. I didn't think Honeoye could come close to competing with Clyde Savannah, though, in the Blue Cross Arena last year, and it was a pretty competitive game. Unfortunately, an injury to one of Honeoye's key players kind of put an end to that one, but up to that point it was a really close game, and it wasn't a game that Clyde ever really ran away with, and that was shocking because that Clyde team last year just as good as this Lions team this year, I would think. And last year they split their Wayne County game. So C2, gotta love it if you're a Lions fan. C3, we got some Wayne Finger Lakes teams in there, and is Naples as good as Caledonia, Mumford, Calmum? I don't think so. Calmum is a really strong team. Can Naples beat Calmum? 2 of 5 times, maybe. Linden, another tough team. York, traditionally a D team, as Naples had been, now up in C3. And HAC, Ryan Hilton maybe sneak into a semi. Clyde Savannah, a really down year. Wouldn't just a nice run in sectionals to get them into a semifinal game, maybe pull an upset, get back to the Blue Cross? Wouldn't that be vindication for Coach Preston and Cam Chance and all those boys in Clyde who've been working hard through a tough season? And the same thing can be said for the South Seneca boys down in 10. Nate Knowles is just a freshman on the team and having a big year, and so they hopefully are getting better. You never know. You never know. D1, can Honeoye get back? I'm shocked that Honeoye hasn't won more games with the duo of Rudolph and Trippy. So we'll see what happens in D1 if they can pull an upset. But Avoca, Mount Morris, Scio up at 3. And finally, D2, the Romulus boys. Joe Peisnack's got them 4th. Now, unfortunately, they're in there with Prattsburg. Elba also very good. But Prattsburg, again, if you're Romulus, you hope they somehow can get on the opposite side of the bracket as a Prattsburg, maybe pull an upset in the semis, and maybe once you get to the Blue Cross Arena, all bets are off, I suppose. But not really. I think all bets might still be on Prattsburg. But that's a look at the boys' sectional standings. And before we get out of here on this wintry Sunday morning, glad you could be with me. I hope you're nice and warm. I hope your driveway is plowed and your sidewalk is shoveled. But let's look at the girls. And just like the boys, let's start at the top in Class A. Some of the classifications are a little different for the girls. So Class A, we just got Wayne. And again, this would be a really tough task to ask Wayne to win this classification, but they sit in 5th right now in the points, and we'll see if they can't even get into that top 4 maybe before the end of the season. Might be more likely that they would fall a couple. That's tough. That's a tough classification for sure. But let's get a little more Wayne Finger Lakes heavy and look at Class B1, and there they are, the Mid-Lakes girls. Batavia girls at 12-1, man. The one thing that you hope not to see is a stunning upset of Mid-Lakes in the sectionals, because they went to the state Final Four last year, and I know that they have designs to get back there. And again, once the sectionals begin, every single game could be Elena Forbes' last game. You never know. They'll still be very good next year, even after the graduation of Forbes. But Palmac girls and Katie Smythe and company and Coach Dan Harris have themselves 3rd in B1 sectional points. And just like the boys, here is where you can see some really great local semifinals or hopefully final games between Finger Lakes East teams. Geneva way down there at 7 is certainly not out of it. And even Newark playing a little better in that situation where they need to pull an upset and maybe catch some fire late. But Geneva girls at 7 in this B1 sectionals, I think that for over the next couple of weeks, they really got to win some games and get inside that top 5. Get a home game for your first game, and then go from there. B2, Minders and Waterloo. They'll play live on Finger Lakes 1 in a couple, I think it's February 1st, Friday, February 1st, girls-boys doubleheader in Seneca Falls. But so far, Waterloo's looked a lot better than the Minders girls, and they beat them pretty bad head-to-head. Unfortunately, Dansville is outstanding. But whether it's Waterloo Minders or even Penn Yan, they look like they're way down there, like there should be some big separation. I don't think there's that big of a separation there between like Penn Yan and Minders girls. So Minders girls got to get better, and they're a very young team too, despite having a lot of senior and upperclassmen leadership on that team. A lot of young girls get a lot of minutes on that team, and so whenever you see that happen, you hope that they can get better as they gain more of that varsity experience throughout the season, be ready to go in the postseason. Class C1. And as I mentioned, Gananda girls basketball has been consistently excellent, and they enter or have the potential to enter another postseason as the top seed. Izzy Wilbur and Red Creek in 5th in points. Bry Parzak's Marcus Whitman Lady Wildcats at 6. East Rochester, 2nd. Great chance to see some awesome matchups between Wayne County or Finger Lakes West, Marcus Whitman in C1. What about C2? Marion Black Knights number 1, Red Jacket number 2. I would take Red Jacket in that matchup if they were to play, but there's a solid chance you could see Marion Red Jacket final. Maybe Lions gets in there instead of Marion. Pembroke's a good team. Geneseo is a solid team, but let's face it, this could be another situation where the Wayne County and Finger Lakes West teams are battling amongst each other for a sectional title. And then we have C3 and South Seneca number 1, pretty comfortably actually at this point. Oakfield, Alabama, man, they got to be getting sick of South Seneca in the postseason. It's one of those things where you say, geez, if South Seneca either didn't exist or was in one classification above or below, how many sectional titles might Oakfield, Alabama have over the past 3 or 4 years? So it's South Seneca here and nobody else. Anything other than a sectional title, I sure would be wildly disappointing for the Lady Falcons. But it's not as easy as I make it sound. They're going to have to win some tough games in the semis and in the finals. And then we'll see what happens after that if they are successful. And Clyde Savannah playing a little better. Dundee girls playing a little better. Autumn Coons at Naples, maybe, you get an upset or two along the way there from those teams. And then finally, D1 and D2 girls. In D1, you have Honeoye girls in 11th at 1 and 12. And then in D2, the Romulus girls in 5th. But unfortunate for them, that Elba team is outstanding, as is Andover. But you got to be in it to win it, Romulus girls. You got to be in it to win it. And you were in it for sure at the 5th seed. Maybe you can improve on that a little bit going forward. So there's our look at, just about everything. As we take another look outside our studio, it looks like there's a little more activity on the road now. Things getting plowed, but still snowing. I'm not too excited about getting home and see how much snow fell on my driveway since I left this morning to come in here in the studio and be with all you basketball fans today. But I'm glad you tuned in. Hope you like the show. Next week, I mentioned hopefully to have Gananda girls and boys in studio as special guests. It would have been a tough ask to get them to drive from Gananda to Seneca Falls on a morning like this morning. And I'm sure most people have shut it down, but not the Upstate Hoops Podcast. So I hope you appreciate the effort. Too much to talk about this week to take a week off. So that's why we're here, and I'm glad you were here with me. NFL playoffs later today, and next week, quiet week with Regents exams and Martin Luther King holiday, although there are some games on Monday. And then the rest of the games on Thursday and Friday, mostly Friday. Thursday night we'll be at the Jack Guinan Arena for Minders. We'll be in the Jack Guinan Arena for Red Jacket girls at South Seneca girls. And I'll show you our upcoming webcast schedule right now. Well, see there Sunday, that's right now, that Upstate Hoops Podcast, Gananda not coming in. You can move them up to next Sunday at January 27th. Red Jacket at South Seneca, Dave Barnick and myself calling it. I'll be on color for that one. I can't wait to watch that game. That's going to be a great game. Also a great game I'm really excited about, moving ahead to Tuesday the 29th. That's the next time Geneva takes the court. So we'll have Geneva's next game. It'll be Wayne at Geneva, and I'll be sitting courtside on the baseline at the Panther Den with Kevin Sharp for that one. And then Friday, February 1st, later that week, after that same week as Wayne and Geneva, it'll be a boys-girls doubleheader, Waterloo at Minders. I know Minders looking for revenge after a couple of losses in Waterloo in what was just a wild atmosphere with a band, a high school band playing, and packed gymnasium, and that was a circus-like atmosphere for that one. And I know it wasn't a great week or a great night for Minders, and I think they're going to want to try to avenge that those 2 losses that evening. So that'll be a fun one to watch, despite the fact there isn't any league implications on the line for the boys or the girls there. Maybe, though, for Waterloo. Probably that's a big game for either one. Big game for both teams, just in general. Not only is it a rivalry game, but it is a sectional points on the line. And for Waterloo, if they could upset Wayne in their second meeting, it could be potential league title on the line. So glad you could be with me. I want to remind you to call into the show if you don't like anything I say and you want to argue with me about it, or if you want to ask a question or leave a message. It's 1-866-315-3591. That's 1-866-315-FLX1. Then hit extension 803 for the Upstate Hoop Podcast. Leave your name, where you're calling from, and your message. We'll play it back on the show. So thanks for joining us on the Upstate Hoops Podcast. Connect with us on Twitter at Finger Lakes 1. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Our audio-only podcast is available on iTunes and Stitcher.com. Archived episodes are available at fingerlakes1.tv, and this podcast airs weekly on Finger Lakes TV Spectrum Channel 1304. You can also find our show, live stream games, and local news, weather, sports 24/7, including Sunday morning when your Sunday newspaper doesn't arrive, on the free fingerlakes1.com Android or iPhone app. Thanks for joining us. See you on Thursday night at the Jack Guinan Arena.